Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, March 28th through Sunday, April 3rd, 2022. This week we have Venus conjoining Saturn at 21 degrees Aquarius, so that is a really interesting, it's an interesting conjunction. There's a lot of symbolism, a lot of themes going on there, so that will be fun to unpack. And more importantly, though, we have a new moon in Aries at 11 degrees of Aries. So this is very significant for two main reasons. One is just that it's an Aries new moon, so this is sort of the second start of Aries. Aries season, of course, begins when the sun enters Aries, but it also begins even more in a much more strong, potent way once we get that new moon in the sun, and that applies for any sign. But I would say it's especially important for Aries, just because Aries starts the whole cycle. There's a lot of energy there, enthusiasm, new things happening, new developments, increased activity, etc. So that's really interesting. But also, this new moon is conjunct Chiron pretty tightly, not exact, but pretty tight. It's conjunct Chiron. It's also conjunct Mercury, a little bit less tightly, but Mercury and Chiron are there. So this is actually a quadruple conjunction. Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Chiron all within a couple degrees from one another. So there's a lot to unpack there. Very interesting. If you just want to hear about the new moon, you don't really care for the rest of the week's forecast, you can use the timestamps that I've provided down below, and then just skip ahead to there. Otherwise, if you'd like to hear about this week's, then stick around. Let's get into it actually. So we start out Monday, March 28th. We have the moon is in Aquarius here, and you can see the moon is already kind of winding down. It's already beginning to close out its cycle. It's continuing to wane, decreasing light, and yeah, so we're already kind of winding down. We're coming off this waning crescent on Monday. So this Monday is a much sweeter, softer Monday than last Monday. Last Monday it was so abrasive and kind of jarring. This Monday we have this really sweet, waning moon, so it's kind of getting more relaxed, more cool, less eventful, more relaxing, and then we're getting this nice sextile aspect, just coming off that sextile aspect on Monday. So this is kind of good for just being a little bit easygoing. We still have a lot of yang energy. We've got fire, Sun, Mercury in Aries, and then we've also got Moon, Venus, Mars, Saturn, all in Aquarius. So there's kind of some fire and air there. Fire and air balance one another, they're opposing. So I think this is a really nice way to start out the week. There's a lot of energy and enthusiasm. All the planets are direct, and we're in Aries season, so it's a great time to start new beginnings. Start a week, for example, is a beginning. So that's all good, but it's not too intense at the beginning of this week. So it looks like a really pleasant day. There's energy there, but not too much. You can be kind of energetic, but also relaxed at the same time on Monday. So that looks really nice. The moon is pretty busy today. The moon will cross over Mars. You can see here by noon Eastern Standard Time, moon has already crossed over Mars. And then it will also cross over Venus and Saturn today. So it's kind of bringing up more of those themes of those planets. So moon crossing over Mars makes us a little bit energetic, impulsive, maybe a little bit competitive, especially with groups or internet activities. Moon then, pretty briefly afterward, crosses over Venus and Saturn. Now, Venus and Saturn are conjoining today on Monday, so there's actually a triple conjunction for just a moment between not only Saturn and Venus, but also the Moon. All three are kind of clustered there. So the Moon crossing over this conjunction brings our attention to it that much more. So let's talk about that. So Venus and Saturn are very different from one another. Venus is a benefic, so it's one of the easiest, maybe even the easiest planet to work with. You don't really have to work very hard with Venus. It kind of just it allows you to focus on your desires and achieve your desires just by being desirable. It's all about desire both ways and attraction. So it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to operate that way and to learn the lessons of Venus. Now Saturn is more difficult, more challenging. It asks us to become better, to grow. We don't always like that. We want to be better, but not have to put in the work, right? So Saturn's very fair, but it's not always everyone's most maybe favorite planet. However, these combining is bittersweet, but it can be very beautiful. If Venus brings fortune, abundance, attraction, desire, and it crosses over Saturn, which brings things that are long lasting, then in theory, Venus crossing over Saturn can allow us, or it can give us a special opportunity to maybe achieve something really long lasting. You would have to work for it, since this is Saturn that we're talking about that is directly involved. So maybe something you've been working on for a while, you finally get some results with. Or there can also be delays though too. It's not all rainbows and butterflies by any means with Saturn. There could be delays to getting something that you are wanting. So on the one hand, maybe it's something that you've been waiting for a long time that you finally get today. On the other hand, though, there could be delays as well. Next, we can go to Tuesday, March 29th. The moon will cross into Pisces from Aquarius. So that is, of course, a lot of a different vibe for two reasons. One is because, of course, Pisces is a different sign than Aquarius. It's much more sentimental, maybe more gentle, more emotional, more intuitive, psychically aware. We get all those kind of water elements. And this is especially true, and this leads me to the other reason that, Moon is closing out its cycle now. So as it enters Pisces, this is the last sign before Aries, where it will make that new moon. It will make the conjunction to the sun and become a new moon. And I always say moon is, I think it's not technically in domicile, but I think it does very well in Pisces. Pisces shares many of the same themes of emotion and increased intuition that the moon, likes to experience, or is most maybe suitable to experience themes like that. So this is really great, and the other thing, coming back to again, that this is the very end of the lunar cycle. So the moon is not only in the last sign, closing out that type of cycle in a way. Moon is also closing out its cycle in relation to the sun. So this is a dark moon, basically. The moon has little to no light at this point, and for the next couple days. So during this time, things can be, on the one hand, they can be difficult, so things can be darker. You don't have that energy of the moon. The moon's, it's almost, vacant. It's obscured from our view. So the energies of the moon are also obscured from us. They're not obvious. They're not apparent. So in other words, the moon's energies are still there. They're just kind of subconscious. They're non-physical. They're subtle. They're happening behind the scenes. So that's kind of where a lot of the activity is happening for the next couple days. This is especially true because Pisces already kind of correlates to a lot of those themes of things being hidden, subconscious, intuitive, non-physical, etc. So really, you could have maybe increased dreams. Maybe that's where the activity is happening in your sleep. Sometimes, in our sleep can almost be more active than when we're awake, because there's a lot going on there that just because we're not aware of it all the time doesn't mean it's not happening or it's not important. Okay, or there could be other things kind of going on in the background as well. So on the one hand, it can be very difficult. It could be challenging. You might not feel as energetic as usual. There's just not that kind of energy pushing us maybe as much. But on the other hand, this can be a really sweet, beautiful time to maybe rest if we can, or engage in activities that are very relaxing, restful. The new moon and moon in Pisces are all about resting and increasing our intuition as well. So that's kind of where the focus is taking a little break, a little bit of a breather before we get that really potent Aries new moon that will start the lunar cycle again. Okay. Okay. So that's pretty much what I have to say for Tuesday. It's more of a relaxing vibe, winding down, maybe becoming a little bit intensified, but also less active, if that makes sense. More focused on a rest period for Tuesday going into Wednesday. And speaking of which, going into Wednesday, March 30th, 2022, Moon is still in Pisces, and it has a few planets to cross over today. So Wednesday, the Moon will cross over Jupiter and Neptune, kind of toward the end of Pisces here. And I keep saying that this is such a, really strong pairing, I guess, since Jupiter and Neptune, each in their own way, are kind of in domicile in Pisces. So in other words, both of them are very comfortable there. It's their home. It's almost like, I guess they're roommates for the time being. Jupiter and Neptune are. And then now the moon, which shows our emotional focus and kind of our short-term focus day to day, that is joining with Jupiter and then Neptune today. So And then also the moon is getting even that much closer to the sun. Let me just highlight my notes here so I don't lose track of where I am. And that's a perfect segue into, with Pisces and Neptune and Jupiter and the moon to some extent, the focus is more emotional. It's not mental. It doesn't really like make sense as much. It's not logical. It's more just about, like there is no right or wrong answer. Whatever the right answer is, whatever the answer is for you, it's subconscious. So this is all really great for like creativity, intuition, and kind of just getting lost, getting distracted, allowing yourself to ramble. So this is a very unstructured atmosphere, pretty much. Okay. Um, and this is typical too with endings. With at the end of cycles, things are the least structured at the very end, generally speaking, and that's what makes room for makes way for the that new structure, the new paradigm that is brought on by the new beginning. In this case, by the new moon in Aries, which we'll experience later in the week. So on Wednesday, it's a very dreamy vibe. This is not at all suitable, I would say, for like work. Like if you have to work on Wednesday, what we might think of as a typical Wednesday, you're in the middle of the week trying to get a lot of work done. Especially if your work is detail oriented or, very linear, like things have to be done in a very linear way, which I think probably most of our work is like that. These energies may be very dysfunctional because, again, you may be getting distracted, you may be daydreaming more. And that leads me to the other thing, which is if your work is more creative in nature, like if you're an artist or something, or I don't know, or you need some kind of like inspiration for your work, like you're designing something, there's some kind of art in it, you know what I mean? Or I don't know, you're writing or something to do with like your imagination or trying to picture or design things, then this would be really great for kind of just going into, I don't know, going into tangents, getting inspiration from different places. That would be really excellent. So my advice would be to, go extra hard into the creativity and the inspiration if you can, when you can. Really get lost in your dreams and get inspired and follow that intuition, see what it kind of shows you. You can make the most of that. And if you do, if you are already obligated toward more detail oriented mental kind of activities, more linear, more physical in nature, I'm picturing like boxes. Like if you're, I don't know, like whenever there's boxes, it's kind of a strictly man made structure, you know what I mean? So if you have to do like really like, artificial man made uh, topics, activities for work or some such, just double check your work, I guess, or maybe take extra breaks if you can. Or if you could take the day off of that, that would maybe be good on this day. Allow yourself to rest and maybe get some inspiration and then come back to it. Something like that. I think I've said enough about that. Let's go forward to Thursday, March 31st, 2022. So very early on Thursday, we have the moon entering Aries, right around midnight. So depending on where you are, the moon may enter Aries very late on Wednesday or very early on Thursday. Okay, so moon entering Aries, this to me always shows, like in this case, it shows that we're already really beginning to experience the themes of the new moon. So the moon is basically obscured. It's MIA. So this is the full focus of the energy being not apparent, things happening behind the scenes, us maybe not being as energetic in terms of like physically energetic or motivated, but we're more motivated in a subconscious or dreamy level, something kind of intuitive or not physical, maybe hard to define, something abstract, something maybe just in our own minds, in our own feelings. That's where the focus is, especially. And yes, the moon is in Aries, but so this is a beginning. But new moons, especially just before the new moon, it's very quiet. It's the most quiet part of the lunar cycle, I would say, because new moons are where you plant the seeds. I'm sure I've said that a million times before, but I'll say it a million times again because that's absolutely what it is. You're planting the seed. Did something just begin? Yes, it absolutely did, but can we all really, experience the seed that was just planted? No. If you look at the ground, it looks like there's nothing there, but there absolutely is something there. And it's kind of festering. Festering sounds bad. It's germinating, or it's kind of, breaking out of the seed. We just can't see it. We can't, we'll really understand the seed being planted as well if we didn't plant it ourselves, which a lot of times we don't with the new moons. Do you get what I'm saying still? So if the new moon happens, seeds are being planted. It's not us planting the seeds necessarily, but somebody or something is planting them. Maybe we're planting some seeds if we can be more kind of aware and in control, I guess. But life can be random. We're not always in control of everything. So it's only till later, especially a week from now, by the first quarter moon, by that point, the seed will be fully sprouted. It will be fully sprouted and, putting roots in the ground, shifting the earth, it'll be changing things. And at that point, it will be obvious what is truly occurring right now. But as we're experiencing it, especially just before the new moon, like right now on Thursday, it's not apparent. I think for those of us who are more intuitively aware, which may be a lot of you since you're into astrology, you may be able to pick up on things and kind of see, or this is an excellent time for setting intentions as well. Of course, on the new moon, but I would argue just before the new moon as well. This is all about, manifesting the next cycle here. So you can set an intention, or also just kind of put that wondering out there, put that question out there, and ask, what is this next cycle about? And you may be able to pick up on it. But if you don't, that's fine too, and you'll definitely see later once shit hits the fan. You'll see later once stuff starts happening, is kind of what I meant there. So in short, it's almost like the calm before the storm on Thursday. It's like, things aren't happening yet, but you can kind of feel this electricity in the air. It's still meant to be a resting period. So yeah, Thursday, everything's winding down. A lot is happening behind the scenes in our minds, in our feelings. It's all abstract. You really can't see it very clearly. But something is almost just beginning. We're on the precipice of it. Okay, going forward to Friday, April 1st, we have the new moon is finally on this day on April 1st, and that's so fitting that not only is it a new moon in Aries, a new moon is a new beginning. Aries is typically a new beginning. And we also have the new moon in Aries on April 1st, which is the beginning of the month. So that's pretty crazy. It's a clear beginning. But not only that, but we have more beginnings because we have Mercury and Chiron conjunct the new moon. Okay, so what does that mean? So like I've said before already, so new moons are generally a quiet time. They're the most quiet part of the lunar cycle. Things are beginning, in the background or in our subconscious, etc. And we only really experience it in a more visceral way later in the lunar cycle, especially when the moon sextiles the sun. We really start to see things in a kind of nice, soft way. And then when the moon squares the sun and we get that quarter moon, then it's, boom, it's really obvious what has begun. But everything's beginning now in a kind of quiet, subtle way. This new moon's energies are being infused with Chiron and also Mercury to a lesser degree. And I was thinking about this before, and what I realized is that Chiron is like a therapist or a counselor. When we experience these Chiron aspects, think of it like therapy or counseling. That can be awkward sometimes. It can be awkward talking about our feelings, doing the work, going into these things. Now, I think most of you that are listening to this, you're all into astrology, so this will be much easier for you than most people. You're into kind of looking at your emotions and analyzing yourselves, and maybe healing past traumas. So you're used to that to some extent. It can still be awkward for us at times, I think, but we're maybe a little bit more used to it than many people. But generally speaking, it can be very awkward. Now, it can also be very beautiful. It could be a catharsis. We can feel very relieved to get a lot of off our chest, maybe to admit certain things or explain ourselves, have an opportunity to kind of put ourselves out there and maybe become better understood, or maybe understand someone else better. I think that can be really, relieving, and there could be like almost like a weight coming off our shoulders. So on the one hand, very awkward. There could be increased empathy between, us and other people, but also awkwardness. Now this is happening in Aries, of course. So new beginning, conjunct Chiron in Aries. This is saying, Chiron wants us to. Chiron is the wounded healer. So we are kind of healing ourselves, maybe healing other people, maybe healing ourselves by healing other people. That's probably the key theme with Chiron. Um, Healing ourselves by healing other people. Sometimes, you have traumas that happen in your life, maybe things that you have to go through where, there's no one there to help you and you have to go through it alone. And you kind of carry that with you. And later, if you notice someone going through the same thing that you did, you can be that person to help them where, when no one else was there to help you, if that makes sense. And it's almost like it heals you. It makes you feel, I think it just heals you. It heals that experience for you. And it's very important. So anyway, so this is what can happen with Chiron in Aries in general, but especially new moon conjunct Chiron in Aries. Now, the way that we heal ourselves or heal other people can happen very abruptly. We may surprise ourselves. Things can be done a little bit abrasively since this is Aries we're talking about. So there can be very impulsive, spontaneous healing. It can also be a little bit self-oriented. So there's a lot of us that are maybe focusing on our own. Maybe it's a self-oriented thing. We're each kind of focusing on our own histories, our own past traumas, and maybe working with ourselves. Maybe it could be just yourself that you, yeah, like you have a relationship with yourself. Let's say something happened to you when you were younger. There's no one there to help you, but you got through it. And then now, if you start to experience the same thing, you can be your own mentor. You can be that. You can be there for yourself and be gentle with yourself. That's something that I've been considering lately as well, and thinking about is that you do have a relationship with yourself, and a lot of us treat ourselves like crap. We have inner dialogues, where we talk down to ourselves, and when you do that, just imagine you saying those things to another person. A lot of us would never say that to another person, but for some reason we think it's okay to talk to ourselves that way. So just think about that. All this kind of comes into play. How I don't know, how do you treat yourself? What's your relationship with yourself? Like, are you on good terms with yourself? Maybe you're not. Do you have, do you have things that have happened in your past that you haven't forgiven yourself for? I think that's a really big thing with New Moon conjunct Chiron in Aries. Maybe, being your own healer and being your own mentor in a way. So think about it. That's something that can happen, and a lot of this, like I said, can happen really spontaneously or impulsively. And I think it's a very high possibility that we may all kind of surprise ourselves around this new moon, especially fall in the days following as well. Okay, and then we also have Mercury conjunct the new moon and Chiron, so it all becomes more vocal, more intellectual as well. So we may be very aware of it in a more detailed way. You get that detail orientedness with Mercury. And then also that expression. Mercury wants to translate things. So taking symbols, taking emotions, taking those past traumas or those therapy sessions or whatever it may be, and translating it, making it something that can be articulated and understood by others as well. Mercury also has to do with teaching and learning, so that can be a lot of therapeutic stuff happening, us teaching other people, us learning from other people, maybe all kind of in the name of healing ourselves. Otherwise, generally speaking, it's a new beginning as well. This is a really potent new beginning. So maybe it's a new beginning of, I don't know, being living a more wholesome life, treating yourself better, treating others better, having more empathy, working toward creating greater understanding. All of that comes into play. And on a more general level, this is really the beginning of spring, even more so. So yes, spring already began, over a week ago, but it's beginning that much more now. We've got new moon in Aries. We're really starting out this cycle, really getting energetic, motivated, inspired, more active, more physically oriented. By now, we have not only Sun and Mercury have entered Aries, but also finally with this new moon in Aries, we've really moved on from the dreaminess. We are much more able now to think clearly and to understand our lives and to see into the future as well. We're more hands on, more forward thinking. So, what are we doing in the present and in the near future? That's the focus. So the energy, whatever, all that stuff that was happening in the first part of this week that was in our minds or in, hard to define, that was in our subconscious or whatever, all of that we're seeing now. It's coming into the world, especially as the moon starts gaining light over the next few days. There's going to be a lot of activity happening, a lot of, um, I don't know, especially with Mercury and Aries conjoining the sun, we can all really speak our minds, speak from the heart. I think Aries is kind of heart ruled. It's not so much thoughts or feelings. It's like the heart. It's like what do you know in your chest and your heart. So we're basically taking what we have gleaned from all that reflection and rest, taking all that and applying it now. And that's how we can be so certain in Aries. We're so confident and so sure of ourselves in Aries because we've done the work, hopefully. Pisces was that time to reflect and to really gain a greater understanding, maybe expand our soul more. Now that we've done that, now we can proceed in Aries and really, get shit done. We can really go out there and make an impact. We're confident because we've gained that knowledge, if that makes sense. Okay, so very exciting stuff on Friday. Going into Saturday, April 2nd. We have some of these exact conjunctions that are actually happening on Saturday. So on Friday, there was the new moon aspect, so that conjunction was exact. And Mercury was close to conjoining Chiron and the Sun, but it hadn't quite done so yet. So only on Saturday does Mercury conjoin Chiron, like you can see here. You can see here right around noon, actually, Eastern Standard Time, Mercury conjoins Chiron and the Sun, all at 12 degrees. I think technically Mercury conjoins Sun at 13 degrees. And I say the degrees, if you have placements right around this area, this will directly affect you in a very profound way. You'll experience a dramatic new beginning. Like let's say you have your Venus at 12 degrees Aries, your love life will begin in a new way. Your desire, your attraction, your wealth, your abundance. There'll be some kind of profound and undeniable beginning in those areas. Also, if you have, placements in around 12, 11, 12, 13 degrees of the cardinal signs, so not just Aries, but also Cancer, Capricorn, or Libra, then there may be a time of stress and sudden change for you as well. But in general, for all of us, the Mercury conjoins Chiron and the Sun. So this really, a lot of the same themes that we experienced on Friday are really continuing to happen on Saturday in a very strong way. So there's some kind of new beginning. And I think this beginning has to do with increased awareness of our ego, our pride, our own histories. Where do we come from? What is our past? And it's sort of about being okay with ourselves, being unashamed, and having that strong link with ourselves. That's that healthy relationship with ourselves, and by doing that, then we can speak freely. We can speak honestly and openly in a very strong way. Okay, that's kind of my take on Mercury conjoining Chiron and the Sun in Aries. We're speaking in a way that's very, very instinctive, very direct, very confident, and it's coming from a place of knowing ourselves, of having done the work. We've reflected, we've rested, we've kind of been lost on journeys or whatever, lost in our own minds maybe. We've done that. Now's the time to get some stuff done, to think in a much more direct way, in a way that's easier to understand. And this will come naturally toward for most of us with all those placements in Aries here. So yeah, Saturday, a lot of new stuff happening. This is really kind of exciting, I think. Again, especially after the conjunctions as well, because these are all starting new cycles. So yes, things may be kind of happening for the first time, new things happening Friday and Saturday, but for many of us, the increased activity will be in the days following. So next week will be very interesting. Also on Saturday, we have the moon entering Taurus around midday. It looks like, early afternoon Eastern Standard Time. This is nice for multiple reasons. One is that I think, after a conjunction, there's a release there. There's like a buildup coming up to the conjunction. In this case, the new moon that we're talking about. New moon is a conjunction between the moon and the sun. So coming up, leading up to that new moon, it's the dark moon. It's very heavy. It can be heavy or intense. There is a new, I don't know, some kind of epiphany or inspiration, some kind of release on the exact new moon, or on with it, most conjunctions, almost any conjunction. And then after that conjunction, then it's almost like we're lighter. Not only like we're lighter, but at the same time, it's almost like we have increased, motivation, awareness, inspiration. We're more, able to go out and kind of begin things anew a little bit. We're beginning things anew, but at the same time, we have that knowledge, or that intuitive buildup that we've gained from completing the last cycle, if that makes sense. That's what Aries is all about. That's also what any kind of new cycle is all about. So even once the moon enters Taurus, this is really beautiful because we've kind of shed a lot of that heavy weight and that intensity, and now the moon will be exalted in Taurus, which is really beautiful. It's kind of the easiest energy to experience, for the moon. And it's also a relatively easy part of the lunar cycle. Now, the moon doesn't have any really light yet. Things are still a little bit quiet, but especially once the moon gets in Gemini, then we'll really begin to experience a lot more activity, and we'll really be able to see what truly began on Friday. So in general, Saturday is still a kind of more relaxed vibe. It's a relaxed vibe, but at the same time, there are things kind of beginning to happen. And again, you may have to be, intuitive to pick up on these things. They may not be obvious just yet. And then Sunday, April 3rd, we have the moon is speeding through Taurus, and it will conjoin Uranus kind of late on April 3rd here, late on Sunday. Okay, so yeah, still, this looks like a nice weekend as a whole, really. Moon in Taurus, it's exalted. It's, we're feeling relatively stable emotionally, feeling grounded, and it's great having both the luminaries exalted. Sun exalted in Aries, Moon exalted in Taurus. So this is very beautiful, especially with the moon and that beginning part of the lunar phase here. So it's almost like we feel in our own bodies. We feel very much ourselves this weekend. We we feel more confident. We feel like things are simpler. Like things are, literally kind of simpler. They're easy to understand, and they're more. I don't like. There's more things happening that are kind of what's expected. Which, on the one hand, that can be boring if you want something, really interesting or spicy. But on the other hand, it can be refreshing to have some level of predictability with certain things. I think a lot of us would be relieved to hear that. So this weekend does look really great. You've got that really strong energy with the sun in Aries, that strong masculine, fiery, outgoing energy. But it combines actually pretty beautifully with the moon in Taurus, which is much more feminine, more slow, more grounded. So we really have the honoring of both, the masculine, feminine, the yang and the yin, the day and the night, etc. So in short, yes, it does look really great. Saturday going into Sunday. Um, just it's almost like we can kind of all feel in our own element. I think the only exception to that would be if you have a lot of placements in fall in your chart, or maybe in detriment. This may actually be kind of unusual to you because you're more used to things being kind of out of balance, or you're more used to dealing with things that are unexpected. So, having this kind of simple energy might actually be hard for somebody like that. But other than that, kind of only exception for most of us, this is, a really easy, pleasant time. Great time for starting things. With any time in Aries season is pretty much a good time to start things, but especially with the moon kind of in this really strong, stable sign of Taurus, and it's gaining light at the very start of its lunar cycle. It is a good time, kind of for starting things and just expressing yourself. So, Sun in Aries and Moon in Taurus have a lot to do with desire. So it's hard to go wrong with it. Just follow what you want in the moment. Have some fun. I think this is really fun. These are some fun placements with the Sun and the Moon exalted and Mercury. I would say enjoy in Aries. So we're having fun expressing ourselves, being ourselves, and maybe being a little bit more confident than usual today. So that looks really beautiful. And that's what I have for you for this week. Stay tuned next week. We have two planets changing signs. Venus and Mercury are both changing signs, and they're both going to yin signs. So that'll be maybe kind of a breath of fresh air, maybe more relaxing. We also have what I would say is one of the most volatile days of the year, and that's the first quarter moon in Cancer. And I'll tell you more next week about why I say that that's one of the most volatile days of the year. So yeah, I hope this helps you, and I'll see you later.